Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where for months now we've seen people in the industry and in the media strongly advocating for theatrical-only releases and be very upset with these streaming options. And we've all been like, calm down, man, it's a pandemic. You know, what else do you want us to do? And we didn't really understand why they were so upset. But I have to say, I kind of get it now. And that's what the focus of today's Movie Math is going to be. This is a problem, but I also don't know what we're going to do about it. The pandemic might kill the movie business or significantly hobble it, and there might be nothing that can be done about it. Oh my God. All right, see, back in the day, tens of millions of people would tune in for the top TV shows. Big Bang Theory to some degree, but I believe Friends was the last massive hit. And I remember seeing Courtney Cox on a red carpet talking about this, saying, we had like 50 million people tuning into our show. I mean, even Game of Thrones can't really get that. Because of the arrival of cable and then streaming services, the audience is just spread out too thin. And now movies are getting shuffled in to that spreadingness. Before, movies were in their own little area and it was controlled by supply and demand. So they put it in only so many theaters, although they were getting to a lot of theaters, but you could only see it at the multiplex. It had a specific window of time before you could see it anywhere else. And that seemed maybe to be quite the strategy. They had a good wall up there to defend themselves, and it's come crumbling down because of the pandemic. So what does this mean for their future? Even with theater-only releases going forward, audiences are now being trained to stay home. And streaming services are upping their game even more so. Like, who thought Netflix could get even more aggressive? But oh, they can. And then also, studios themselves have streaming services which are entering the competition. And so they're giving you more reasons to stay home. To not, even if some movies, and you're going to see, we're starting to get to movies that you have to go and see at the theater. And so far, not too compelling an argument. So, I mean, what's going to be something that breaks through? Will this be the end of big opening weekends? I don't think I'm ready to, this is pretty bad though. I don't think I'm ready to say we'll never have a big opening weekend again, but we were getting to the point where we had a pretty big opening weekend every weekend. It might become maybe once a month or something, whenever Disney releases a movie, basically. I mean, we'll talk about Disney Plus in a moment. Now, one thing that also protected the movie business up until now was that that's where you could make the most money. That's where you had the best chance of making the most money. You could make money in TV, but you had to be in a hit show that ran for at least 5 seasons, so it went to syndication, and those were far and few between. Also, because hit shows run for years, and so people are already set. They like that show. Whereas, of course, there's a movie, and then there's more space in the area. But now there's so much money in streaming that could be another way that the digital frontier undercuts the traditional movie business model. So with streaming, you have something that's cheaper for viewers and now offers more money for talent. How does anyone else compete with that? It's a real problem. Now, Disney Plus is the only streaming service which makes you pay an additional fee if you want to watch a fresh new movie on it. $30 if you want to watch Black Widow. But they're still willing to push that model because they don't have to share that revenue with any third-party distributors, be it a movie theater or a service, a PVOD service like iTunes or Amazon. You have to give a cut of that money to those places. So that's why Disney Plus just won't give up this idea. But as you can see, everything is motivated by money. Everything. Even your decision whether or not to go to the theater. I mean, of course, the pandemic plays something into it, but it's also whether or not you want to spend the money to go to the theater, from a budgetary perspective and also a value perspective. Do you think you're getting your money's worth? So Wrath of Man, theaters only, took Black Widow's spot this weekend, kicking off the second pandemic summer movie season. Why things don't look much better. I guess they're a little better. Stuff's coming out now, but as you can see, we might be creating a real mess for ourselves. So anyway, Wrath of Man did a little better than Nobody, another R-rated actioner with just, Wrath of Man had just a scooch more star power, as you can see reflected in the two grosses. You want to know how much bigger of a star Jason Statham is than Bob Odenkirk? It's a little less than 2 million. Wrath of Man skewed heavily older male. Not only, I think, a combination of the appeal of the film and the talent attached to it, but also who's willing to go to a theater right now during a pandemic. Also where. Texas, of course, again, becoming a huge hotspot for moviegoing these days. Elsewhere in the box office, Demon Slayer and Mortal Kombat both fell again in their third weekends. Oh, they're falling fast. While Godzilla vs. Kong is trying so hard to get to 100 million stateside. Globally, the pick is at 422, still well over 100 million shy of the top MonsterVerse movies. But that still worked out pretty good. But, not great. I mean, would Godzilla vs. Kong be just as valuable as a streaming-only film if it had driven more subscriber traffic? These are interesting questions that now we have to start asking ourselves. Oh boy. The real box office test, though, will be Memorial Day weekend when two legit picks go head-to-head. Cruella in theaters and on Disney Plus for $30 a pop, or A Quiet Place 2, which is theaters only. By the way, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt feel they aren't getting paid enough. They feel the 45-day window that Paramount's putting on their film before it heads to Paramount Plus is going to cut short their bonuses, just like the Warner Brothers HBO Max situation. But Paramount, they don't feel compelled to pay them any money. They're like, hey, pandemic, man, we're all hurting. And they don't even care that John Krasinski is a big part of the studio with his, hopefully making more Quiet Place movies. And, Jack Ryan for Paramount's television division, even though that airs on Amazon. What? You guys got to start getting your shows on your own streaming services. I did read, though, that John Krasinski's agent was like, okay, fine, I'm just going to make you pay through the nose for A Quiet Place 3. And you're like, I don't know if they're going to want it. Let's see how this does. I mean, it sucks that movie had to be held for so long. Also, still they're being quiet 3 movies in? I don't know about that. All right, I'd be like, you guys still can't talk? We're like, your pandemic's going on forever? Our pandemic's going on forever? That's interesting. We have to wear masks. They can't talk. Crazy stuff. All right, remember we thought it was so weird when we saw the movie before? All right, so anyway, back to this weekend's top 10. Billy Crystal tried to find another comedic partner in Tiffany Haddish. I understand the attempt, but it didn't work out. Billy Crystal has been perhaps away for too long. He also seemed a little out of touch with current culture with some interviews that he gave, got himself in a bit of trouble on social media. And Haddish's star has been going in the wrong direction for a little bit now. And also, this just looked like a streaming movie. Who in their right mind would pay to go and see this in a theater? It used to be, again, that people wanted to go out, but I think people are just finding other ways to go out, and they go home and they get entertained at home still. That's a real problem. Again, as I've been saying, and as the industry is starting to say, premium movie theater experiences are the future, but I don't know if there's enough there to replicate what they'll lose. All right, because there'll still always be more people who will wait for the cheaper option. Okay, let's talk charts. For the week of April 5th, remember, Nielsen is a couple of weeks behind. Nielsen has Falcon and Winter Soldier back at a strong number 1, which is great because it dipped a little bit before and we were nervous, but it's doing just fine. Better than fine. It's doing great. Well, Amazon has the runner-up spot with them. No chatter on social media, but clearly a lot of people tuned in. However, Amazon got one on the charts and they lost one as Invincible fell off the list after barely making it on last week. I even missed it when I was filming and I caught it in the edit. And interestingly, while people are still watching The Crown and Ginny in Georgia, WandaVision doesn't seem to have any legs. People watch these Marvel Disney Plus shows when they air, but it seems very few people go back and catch up on them. There's the current one and that's it. So Falcon and Winter Soldier has more of a window before Loki hits. It went right into Falcon after Wanda, as you recall. Speaking of Marvel Disney Plus shows, it was announced last week that Loki will switch to Wednesdays. I told you I heard that they were considering doing that because, of course, Black Widow will be coming out on a Friday and Loki will overlap. But I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see what a 3 a.m. drop of a huge show is like when it happens in the middle of the week, in the middle of the work week. I mean, so far, Sundays and Fridays have been the best for this kind of a show to debut. Maybe I could see Thursday. I would say Thursday night could work. But, I don't know how Disney, they didn't say anything about the time that they were going to do. I think 3 a.m. on a Wednesday? Oh man, that's going to be nuts. What's that going to do to the public relations strategy as well for Hollywood All Day Wednesday? Wednesday trailers sometimes come out then. Oh boy. All right, so, and speaking of oh boy, Melissa McCarthy and hubby Ben Falcone are getting the last laugh. I can't believe it. Thunder Force is a massive hit. Who watched it? Who of you watched it? Darn it! It dominated its week of release, as you can see. Well, McCarthy signed a Netflix deal. She and her husband have one movie signed to do with Warner Brothers where she plays Mrs. Claus, I believe, Margie Claus, who goes off to rescue Santa Claus when he goes missing one Christmas. And I gotta tell you, I could see myself maybe watching that. Darn it, that's how they get us with these log lines. But that's for Warner Brothers and I'm guessing HBO Max. But I could see maybe a Netflix deal in her future. Well, she'll go full Adam Sandler. Meanwhile, Concrete Cowboy, also for Netflix, went up in the rankings in its second weekend, so I'm very happy about that because I like that movie. And Raya, still in the top 10 at $30. Although, again, you can watch it indefinitely, so maybe that's still the same group of people. People watch these Disney Plus movies on a loop. And speaking of streaming movies, there's some couple small headlines to mix in here. Sony sold Cinderella to Amazon. Thank you for everybody who remembered that I recommended they do that a couple of months ago. Well, Paramount is going to use the Mark Wahlberg starring Antoine Fuqua directed Infinite to help out Paramount Plus. It's going to go direct to that streaming service in June. They said they want to get to a place where Paramount Plus has a new movie every week. Woo! I guess Netflix does, so why not Paramount Plus? And so I can see that. I subscribe to Paramount Plus, but I still have not watched it, but I would for that Mark Wahlberg movie. As for Netflix this week, what are people watching this past week on Netflix? Jupiter's Legacy is #1, and its Rotten Tomatoes score went up. Unfortunately, the IMDb one went down a little bit, but when I tweeted the high score on the moderate score on Friday, some of you were like, oh, it's going to go down, Grace. And I'm so happy that it went up. Shadow and Bone is also still in the top 10, and fans are waiting on pins and needles for these second season announcements. Tick-tock, Netflix. I can understand Jupiter's Legacy just debuted, and its critic score is pretty bad. But what are you waiting on for Shadow and Bone? You're making me nervous. Not a ton of movement over on iTunes, although 2 direct-to-PVOD movies have found an audience. Chloe Grace Moretz in a sci-fi World War II movie. I watched the trailer for that. It looked absolutely ridiculous, and many people say it's god-awful, but people are still buying or renting it. And I have to say, she has amazing hair in the trailer. And The Paper Tigers. I thought that was great to see this in the top 10. That's catching the Cobra Kai wave, but with diverse leads, and Chosen even has a cameo in that film. As for this coming week, talk about spreading your audience out thin. You have so many options. So Army of the Dead hits theaters a week before its Netflix release, and Cinemark has signed on. All in all, Army of the Dead will play in 600 theaters thanks to the pandemic, changing how people feel about theatrical windows. And so if you live near a Cinemark, an iPic, a Landmark, an Alamo Drafthouse, a Harkins, we all know what Harkins is now, we've been talking about it, or a Cinepolis, you'll be able to see Army of the Dead in theaters this Friday. AMC and Regal, though, have still said no thank you. Spiral will also open on Fridays, exclusively in theaters, while Those Who Wish Me Dead will be available at your local multiplex or on HBO Max at no additional cost. Amazon drops the Underground Railroad 10-episode series in its entirety on Friday from Barry Jenkins, while Disney Plus kicks off High School Musical, the Musical, Season 2, as well as new episodes of Big Shot and the Mighty Ducks. I think somebody's watching those shows. And The Bad Batch. The Bad Batch just is not caught on, but maybe something really cool will happen. Then Netflix, oh my gosh, Netflix has The Woman in the Window, finally. Halston, all 5 episodes, very good show. And I can't review it until Friday, though. That's when the embargo lifts. And then Love, Death, and Robots, Season 2. So, what are you going to watch out of that? And also, what's first up? You're not going to be able to watch all of that weekend, although maybe some of you will try. All right, share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.